Today we're going to be talking about the biosimilars market in the United States, and we're going to start with just a brief overview. Al, what I'm seeing is that we're definitely starting to see more entrants into the marketplace and a little more acceptance, but I think there's still been a decent amount of misunderstanding, both from providers and patients, about what biosimilars really are. I think providers are getting excited about them. They're starting to understand the potential cost savings with biosimilars, but still aren't 100% sure always with how they're coming to market, when they can use them, and when they may actually be interchangeable with one another. And I think patients, for the most part, similarly, really right now just have more questions and aren't really sure what they mean for the marketplace.
Yeah, and I agree with that. In the last few months, we've seen a slight uptick in the biosimilar use, but it's still only about 7% in our payer mix. And for the most part, patients haven't raised a lot of questions to us as a plan. We have providers that raise the questions. There's a lot of misinformation that's been out there. They're just kind of beginning to understand the whole concept of profitability in biosimilars to them and lower cost to our members.
I would agree. I think in our health system, as we're talking to our providers and really explaining to them more around the science and some of the approval process, I agree. I think those questions where the misunderstandings are starting to turn into better education and a better understanding. We're also seeing that a lot of the decision-making being driven by some of the plans and some of the plan decisions, where it's made our providers, and by extension, I think because orders are being written, our patients ask more questions because they're maybe being asked to switch.
Yeah, and we started with the biosimilar policy back in 2015 and had relatively small uptake in that. Now, flash forward, and about 92% of our benefits we have within a plan now are high deductibles with HSAs, and suddenly that member is much more visible when they see this $5,000 bill out of their physician's office and are beginning to ask questions. Are there alternatives? What are my costs? And so biosimilars are just now beginning to hit the kind of the member consciousness.
And I think that's what we're seeing as well, as I was saying, some of the plan design is really driving the patients to ask more questions. So I'm sure they're coming your way, from a plan perspective, but definitely from a provider perspective as well. We're having patients, come to, whether it's the prescribing physician or whether it's to the pharmacy team, really asking, what is this biosimilar? Is it something that I should be concerned about? Is it safe? Can I change from this? And I think our staff has felt reasonably confident, being able to reply to them, yes, this is the wave of the future. This is what's coming, and these are in fact approved, by the FDA. This is something that's on the market for a reason and able to be used based on a lot of science behind them.
Right, and the science was misunderstood at first. I mean, the first, say, 3 years of having our policy in place, we didn't get a single member call about it. But it was all on the provider side. And I don't want to use this, or I don't know about it. It's not a generic substitution. It's something new and different. And we tried to politely point out that, we've had human insulin since 1982, which is very similar in the biosimilar concept, not necessarily from a regulatory perspective.
That's the example our teams have used quite a bit as well, is to say that, the reality is just as you described, the exact regulatory pathway, and that is different, but the concept and some of the science behind it has been similar.